Your skill alone isn't what's going to make you money in consulting. People don't care if you're a child prodigy in AWS if you can't communicate or solve their actual problems. Everything in life is perception, and the better you are at playing with that perception, the more you get from or out of people. So all your years of experience, your certs, your skills, they're all irrelevant if you don't know how to manipulate that perception and convince someone that you're actually valuable to them. But that sounds really convoluted, so let's break it down into 3 simple steps, each with their own building blocks. So our first 3 steps look like this. To open the door, people care about your appearance. To get in the building, people care about how much you know and how you make them feel. And to get paid, people care about how well you deliver the information they need to know and how you implement them as solutions that actually solve their problems. So on step number 1, you can see to open the door, people care about your appearance. So what does that actually mean? When it's digital, your outreach messages, your voice, your text, the value that you give, and the homework that you've done are going to be the most important things that you can do before you've spoken to the stranger. These are the things that are going to help you get through the door. So the research is super important because if you don't have it, your message is never going to resonate with a person in a way that actually means something to them. So how do we do super tactical research? The first thing I would do is I would probably use Perplexity with a bunch of other tools. So obviously everything that I do now is trying to incorporate some form of AI, and we can use it at different levels. For those of you who aren't really tech savvy and know about web scraping and building automation, all that stuff, you can just copy and paste most of this stuff or take screenshots and chuck it into a language model. So either way, this is really useful, and just follow along. So for my Stalker-Level research, I'm going to make sure that I'm checking their website, any recent news, their LinkedIn profile, their Twitter, Reddit, basically any presence that the company has online, I'm going to check that. And some of the places that people often don't look are places like Google Reviews or Trustpilot, Glassdoor, because there's lots of valuable things in there that give away pain points that the company itself might have. For instance, if you have someone who's constantly getting bad reviews about their call support or their chat support being really shit, that's a sign for you as a consultant, depending on what line of work you're in, to go in there and approach them and say, oh, hey, I saw this thing publicly on your Google reviews that you have really bad chat support. We can solve it by doing X, Y, Z. So you can kind of see how the research is really an important way to break the ice with a complete stranger here. But then secondly, to add on to this, you also want to attack the person's personal profile. You want to check their posts, their entire web presence, basically everything that they have online, so that you can find some form of common ground that breaks the ice. In one of my previous videos, I talk about how I did this by giving some guy a random trance set list from the early 2000s that we both enjoyed listening to, and he couldn't find it and I knew where it was. And that was my way to break the ice with the stranger. So even random things like that, like if you're into cycling, riding bikes, whatever, and so is this person that you're researching, it's a really good way to get ahead. So I'm going to use Perplexity for most of the research on here. It's amazing at scouring the web for anything that exists out there. And it's also really good specifically for gathering data on companies and stuff like that. So I've included an example prompt here. Find me everything you can about company name, research initiatives, challenges, and their tech stack. Summarize this with the person, then you insert their LinkedIn profile, might be working on right now. So it's not going to be the same as scraping their actual profile with a LinkedIn tool. But what you can do is just take a screenshot of that if you're not tech savvy and you don't use something like Apify to scrape LinkedIn profiles. There are tons of tools you can use for this, so you don't just have to use Apify. I think in a future video, I will break down my complete automation tool process for this, because it's a lot simpler to just have this on autopilot and have it build a report for you. But once I've got all of this information, the next step that I want to do is I want to use ChatGPT to take the research and craft my positioning to whoever the stranger is. So an example prompt of that would be, based on this data, write me a 2-sentence LinkedIn intro that ties my background as a whatever role you're in, cloud security architect, to what this company cares about most. Now again, obviously you're not going to research every company out there. You're only going to research if you're a cloud security architect, and you're going to find something within your niche where a company has problems that you need. And then get a language model to just attach your value to that. And again, you're going to use ChatGPT to map any potential pain points that this company has to the stuff that you can do. So given the company's stated goals and challenges, what 5 key pain points might they have in cloud security or data, whatever it is that you're doing? So what would this look like if I had to build this entire process out into something and put it into a Notion board like I've done? Let's take a look at that. So I've automated this entire process, but this is ideally what you want your research output to look like once you've used Perplexity and ChatGPT or Claude, whatever it is you use. Essentially, you're going to have the person's profile. So in this case, I use my own profile so that I know that it's telling the truth because I know me for the purposes of this demo. So Mansell Sheffer is a dynamic founder and cybersecurity consultant based in NYC with a diverse career spanning in trance music production to IT consulting. He successfully established and expanded multiple ventures, including the Cloud Workshop and the Consultant's Compass, blah, 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 blah. So that's totally accurate. Then we get down to the company profile. So it talks about my latest company. In this case, because my latest company on my LinkedIn profile is the Consultant's Compass, which is my community for helping people break into consulting, it picks that up and it built its entire framing on the Consultant's Compass. So it tells about what the company is. Founded by Mansell Sheffer, the company focuses on empowering individuals to carve out successful careers in tech consulting. Blah, blah, blah. So far, totally accurate. Interests: AI, DevOps, cloud engineering, cybersecurity, career development coaching, and music production. Unique facts: Mansell successfully transitioned from signed trance music producer performing gigs around the UK to a leading figure in cybersecurity consulting. Debatable on leading figure. And if someone had other unique facts, obviously these are all places that you can piggyback off when you're trying to find common ground with strangers. Similarities, it found none, because I'm guessing it found out that we're the exact same person, because in my prompt I specify who I am, e.g. I'm Mansell Sheffer, this is what I do. So in this case it didn't list any similarities, but if you had any with a stranger it would totally list them. Then the next thing that it did for me, based on all the research that we did again, so we took all of the stuff from Perplexity and chucked it into ChatGPT and asked it to build out pain points and solutions here, which equal opportunities. So scalability of mentorship programs. The Consultant's Compass offers direct mentorship and practical strategies to a growing number of aspiring consultants. As demand increases, maintaining personalized mentorship can become challenging. So that's problem number one. The solution: Atomic Ops can develop an AI-powered mentorship platform that automates matching processes between mentors and mentees, schedule sessions, provide personalized learning paths. Atomic Ops is the name of my AI automation company in the US, now that I've moved here. So you can see how it's taking all of these problems and automatically mapping solutions to it. So these would be ways that we would approach these people when we're reaching out to them. We know exactly what their problems are, whether it's a personal problem that ties into their work or a personal thing that you can piggyback off because you have similarities with them. And then attaching the solution, which is any value. So you can see how awesome this is, because it cuts most of the guesswork in half. And another thing to keep in mind, again, this is tailored specifically towards automation because I've told it to take on that role. It's all based on my company, and you can put in whatever the hell you want here. If you're a cloud architect or you're in DevOps, you could fill in your prompt, you could put in that you are DevOps, blah, 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 looking to help people with X, Y, Z. And all of the output would be based on who you are and what you're going to do. So the automation opportunities here, that AI-powered mentorship platform, develop a scalable platform that uses AI to match mentors with mentees. Client onboarding system, that would be super valuable. I could really use one of those. Should probably build one. Dynamic content management, SaaS, create a SaaS platform that allows for easy updates and management of educational materials. That already exists. But anyway, you get the point. It's basically going to spit out all of the opportunities for you. And then over here, I've just got a research report based on everything that it found on my LinkedIn, all my latest posts and things like that. And again, the reason why posts are so awesome is you can use them as a segue to start a conversation. Oh, hey, I just saw your recent post on XYZ. Really loved what you were saying about blah, blah, blah. And I thought I'd get in touch because reasons. So again, it's just more ways to get hold of people. And then next up, we're onto the static and dynamic content. So this is going to be everything that's on your online world for yourself. So once you've reached out to these people, or if you do something that makes people reach out to you, you want to make sure that the things that they're seeing are actually awesome and make you look like you know what you're talking about. So your LinkedIn, your resume, your personal brand, any social proof that you have, any reviews that you have, this is all what makes you look like the best product on the market. And it's really important that you get this stuff up to scratch. And there are a lot of ways that you can shortcut this with AI. So the first thing that you can do is obvious, use an AI model to revamp your LinkedIn page and your resume. But don't just say make it better. So the first thing I would do is I would take 2 to 3 LinkedIn profiles that I actually love in the field that I'm working in, or just something in general that I'm really interested in. The people where you think, holy shit, that's what I want to be that. Don't bother going for someone with like 5 followers who is nowhere that you want to be. And you're going to prompt ChatGPT, so rewrite my LinkedIn about section to be as good as these profiles. And then I'm going to take a screenshot of whoever profile it is, the entire thing, and say rewrite it, put it in that structure. And I'll give you an example of this shortly. Use my background and focus on how I deliver value to businesses I work with, which is super important. You don't want your profile to just be something simple like, hey, this is me and I'm into taxidermy. You need to make sure that whatever it is that you're doing needs to resonate with the person as well. So your headline and tagline should be something like, I help this type of business get this result by doing whatever the thing is that you do that results in this outcome for them. And that should be the first thing that they see when they click on your profile. But with LinkedIn, you know that your tagline appears in most of the things that you interact with. So you want to make sure that within the first few lines, people understand what you're doing. So let's take a look at what that might look like. So here we are at LinkedIn, and a few things before we get into this. One, yes, I have changed because I recorded this entire thing with my microphone off the first time around. Two, you take LinkedIn with a grain of salt because 1 minute experts are telling you to do this and the next minute everything changes because either the algorithm changes or something else. So in no way am I saying one, that I'm an expert, but two, what I'm doing now is just what is best practice according to all of the people that I follow and what they say and tell people to do, and some of the things that have genuinely worked for me as well. So let's get into that, but just keep in mind that you might be watching this far into the future, in which case things might have changed. But let's dive in. So the first thing that you see when you come onto my page is obviously my banner. There are tons of ways that you can do a banner. For me, I've done it pretty straightforward. I just have automate the work you hate with an arrow pointing to my company page, my company logo over there. The reason that I did this is because it's a really good emotional hook. Everyone has work that they hate. And while this doesn't tell people exactly what they're going to get out of it, they do know that I'm in some form of automation and that I help them with their problems, stuff that they don't enjoy doing, which if you had to think about it even further down the rabbit hole, it would be the boring ass work that no one wants to do. So that's why I led with this, because it's pretty straightforward. And then I elaborate on it immediately in my statement here. So automating the work sales and ops teams hate, saving 20 plus hours a week across lead gen, outreach, and internal processes at Atomic Ops. So immediately people know what they're going to get you. And we can see how I kind of applied the formula to it because I have a company rather than just me doing it. I didn't say I help. I just put it in a different context saying automating the work sales and ops teams hate. So in that statement, you can see immediately what I'm doing. I'm doing automation. Who I'm helping, sales and ops teams. What am I helping them with? The work that they hate doing. What outcome do they get from that? Saving 20 plus hours a week. In what areas? Lead gen, outreach, and internal processes. And those three things are the three things that arguably give back the most return to these types of teams. So anyone reading that knows exactly what they're going to get out of working with me. Then the second part is founder, to tell them obviously that I founded both of these places, but then helping tech talent build six-figure consulting careers at the Consultant's Compass. So immediately when you read that, you know exactly who I'm helping and what I'm helping them achieve. So then we have my company page over here. Anyone obviously who clicks on that will take them to my company page on LinkedIn. And over here we have a button that will take them to the Consultant's Compass for anyone who's interested in learning consulting. Now, I might change this at some point. I might put Atomic Ops over here as well. I might have a Calendly link that books calls immediately for me, which is really helpful. A lot of people do that. I used to do that. But now I'm trying this just because I have two different things going on at the moment. So I want to try see what drives traffic where. But then we get down to the About page. So let me just zip this one back up. How do I do that? Anyway, I can't zip that back up, so I'm not going to try and do that right now. But anyway, the About page starts with deciding to leave my home in 2011 from sunny South Africa to the UK changed my life forever. Here's what happened next. In fact, no, I need to do this to elaborate on a point. So you can see here, that's where it stops. Here's what happened next. So anyone who views my profile, if they actually want to find out what happened next, they're going to have to click on See More. And this works really well across mobile and web, whatever version you're using. So before we get into this exact section, I would say that when you're doing this, make sure that you have a few people who you really like in the space or any part of life that you follow as a role model. I'm pretty sure by now they have LinkedIn pages. And you want to mimic what they're doing. You basically want to look at someone who is where you want to be and mimic whatever it is that they're doing. And then put some of your own critical thinking towards it to see if it's going to work for you. You always need to do that. Don't just copy and paste. So for me, I copied this from Alex Hormozi. This is exactly what he does on his thing. And it worked really well for me because a lot of people see this and they want to know, hey, this guy moved from South Africa to London. That's a pretty big move. And I could extend this even further now that I've moved from the UK to New York. So that's an even bigger move for the third time. But I don't need to do that yet. Anyway, the point being is that we're trying to lure people in here. And there are a lot of things that you can do with your About page. You don't have to use this luring thing. You can immediately, again, show how you give value to people and put in a bunch of other stuff in here. But I took this route. And then you can see I break it down chronologically, what happened 2011 to 2013, got music signed to a label in the UK, blah, 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 blah. Then they keep reading, and I made it really easy for them to read. I chunked up the time and the things that I did, and a lot of people say that I do pretty interesting things, so maybe I did do some interesting stuff. It's definitely non-conventional, the path that I took, because I have no degree, I had no experience at the time, and I was completely new in this foreign land and did a bunch of stuff. So people keep on reading to find out, holy shit, how does the story end? And eventually it tells them how much money I made and everything that I did in every single space. And then most recently moved to New York, rebranded the Cloud Workshop to Atomic Ops to focus on AI automation. And then after that, I tell them, if you're a company, this is how I help you. And I could maybe make this bolder or something like that. So I might do that now that I've read it again. And if you're an individual and want to make more money in tech, then I tell them how I can help them. And then ultimately I end off with people who want to follow my journey on YouTube, where I'm creating content such as this, where they can get free advice and all sorts of stuff like that, but also filming a vlog of whatever it is that I'm building and doing. So there's 3 different things that help 3 different people within my About page. And as long as you keep it really enticing and interesting for people to read, they're going to keep on reading. Depending on your niche, how fast you need to be in this kind of thing, obviously it plays a factor into how you're going to write your About page. So just keep that in mind. Again, this isn't gospel. This is just what I do, what works for me, and what works for some of the people that I follow. Then skills are super important. So over here, you put in your top skills. This isn't where you put all of your skills, just your top ones. And you want to make sure that all of these things coincide with what you actually do, because when it comes to recruiters or people doing scraping, you obviously want to have the right skills picked up. And a lot of people, they don't factor in all of this stuff when they're doing it, because when you're posting content, or if you're trying to find jobs on LinkedIn, people are going to be looking at your profile, sure, and they're going to see these things. But if you want to appear in searches from recruiters and tools that people are using to scrape your profile, you want to make sure that these things are being picked up in that scraping as well. Otherwise, you're not going to form part of the things that they build when they're trying to sell you as a lead to someone else to find a skilled AWS person or a skilled DevOps person, whatever. If you haven't listed that, they're never going to find you. Pretty obvious. Then you can have a services page. So I don't really find this useful. I haven't gotten anything from this. I just put it on there in case there's some hidden value I don't know about. But essentially, I'm just listing some of my other skills as well. And it's still very primitive at the moment. It doesn't list things like AI, and you can't be super specific about the type of cybersecurity work that you do. So again, it's not entirely valuable, but it might still be worthwhile. The next thing is your featured section. So you want to make sure that you have at least one featured thing. Even if you don't have any client work or any crazy shit that you're doing, I'm sure you've got something that you can feature. Like maybe you built something really cool in a lab or as part of a project or some no-code stuff. And you could put it here as a project that people can see to some of your featured work. So for me, I've got both of my companies on here, and you can see again, brand consistency, so Atomic Ops and the Consultant's Compass. Arguably, I could probably somehow kind of merge these colors. There are 2 separate brands, but that's something I'll speak to a brand person about. But there are 2 separate things, which is why they are so massively different. But the point being is that for my featured section, people again know exactly why they're here and what I'm doing. So Atomic Ops, automate the work you hate, focus on what matters. We build intelligent systems that reduce manual work and streamline operations, from lead gen to outreach to internal processes that scale. And the same thing for the Consultant's Compass. So yeah, and then if people click on this, they see a bit more and they can click view, and it will take them straight to my website over here. So it's highly valuable. You can see why you would want this on your page, because if people are scrolling through this, they do read your About page, and then they see your featured section and everything looks so consistent and so good. It's an entire funnel that you can get people in to see exactly who you are, what you're all about, and how you can provide value to them. So make sure that you have all of this stuff really consistent on your page. Then obviously you want to be posting if you have time and if you can. This isn't something that's going to make you money instantly, but if you're posting really valuable stuff and you start build a following, it does help you build social proof. So I would definitely recommend that you start doing that, even if you get a bot to start doing it for you as a baseline, and then add some of your own human stuff into it, because people who just use AI, that's pretty shit. And a lot of people do actually know when there is some human input in there. So keep that in mind. I haven't posted in a while because I was doing a whole move and changing my company around and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I just got to America now. So I'll start posting again very, very soon. Coming down to experience, you can see again that everything ties in with everything. We've got Atomic Ops here, exactly what we do, how we help them, and then straight onto my website again. So again, you can link in all of your stuff here, which is super important. You want to make sure that the flow is everywhere. And all of the top skills that I have at each place that I worked over time, again, for the scraping and for any LinkedIn algorithms or recruiters looking up my stuff. And that goes all the way down. And those are pretty much the main tabs. Education and licenses and certs, those are pretty self-explanatory. You want to make sure they're all updated. This is the skills section, so I've added 52 skills. Literally, like everything I've ever done that I'm good at, I put in there, again, for the sake of having it there for the algorithms and people finding me. Recommendations, if you don't have recommendations, you can write some for people, and by the law of giving, they should hopefully give you some back. So that's if no one's done it for you already. So yeah, it's literally just a high-level overview of how to do this. I'm sure there are a few other tricks and tips that you could find in a deep dive. Maybe I'll create a deep dive video for another time. But this is definitely going to get you where you need to go. I think it's a great starting point. It's worked for me over the years. So the TLDR of all of this, I would say, is that you need to make sure that you're mimicking a page of someone that you like and someone who is ahead, someone is where you want to be, because those are the things that are really going to work for you. But you need to apply your own critical thinking. So just keep that in mind. So we're back in presentation land, and the next building block and final building block of step 1 is to let AI handle all the communications if you don't know how to. So if you don't know how to write intro messages to people or talk to people yet, and you're still trying to understand this whole giving value thing or making sure that you're responding in a way that's actually helpful to the person, just let it write DMs for you. That's probably going to be the easiest way to do this while you learn and understand along the way. Again, one of the things that I always tell people to do is not just to get AI to do the thing for you. Otherwise, you're going to end up being an idiot, especially when you have to talk to people in real life and they realize that you don't have no idea what you're talking about. The whole point of AI is to help you augment your own intelligence so that you can become better than the most people who just spend their time mediocre. So yeah, for me, I use it for everything. I use it for initial outreach because obviously I can automate it. It's way faster. But then I'm also going to use it to understand concepts of communication that I don't really understand. But if you want to let AI handle all of your communications for initial outreach, don't just automate it to the point where you leave it and there's no human in the loop. You always need to make sure that you understand what this thing is doing, apply your critical thinking, and again, put your own voice in it. So once it shows you, this is why I'm doing it, here is the value part, here is the ice-breaking part. Once you understand that, put your own words in, put your own phrases in, because your personality is ultimately what's going to close this thing. So there is a really cool tool that you can use if you don't have. So if you've got ChatGPT, obviously you can just come in here and you can go to GPTs, and there'll be a whole bunch in here. For me, again, I just use the Alex Hormozy one because he's a master at sales and lead gen and outreach, and it will explain everything perfectly using this trained model. It's a really good model, so I recommend you use one if you don't have it. But another really cool trick that you can do is if you wanted to create your own one, going a bit off piste here, but it's super valuable. This is how you turn a lazy prompt into a great one. So you could say something like, I want to be better at lead gen outreach messages. I need you to help me. So you might just throw that into ChatGPT and sure, it could give you some really cool stuff. But if you use this, which is based on the actual principles of prompting, where we have a statement of work and tasks and roles and objectives and all of that stuff, the AI is much smarter than just some basic bitch throwing in this lazy prompt that we threw in the first time. But you can see how awesome this is because one, it turned our lazy prompt into something amazing. You are working in sales or business development role where generating qualified leads through outreach is critical to your success. So you can see already that's way better than the lazy thing we typed in first. Then it gives you the task, analyze and improve lead generation outreach messages by providing specific actionable feedback on messaging strategy, structure, personalization techniques, and conversion optimization. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but you can immediately see how this is way more valuable than the initial thing that we typed in. But then the next thing that's even cool is you can improve it even more. So it asks you questions that would make it even smarter as a prompt. What's your target audience? Obviously, you should know this by now. But then it also gives you some examples. So marketing directors at SaaS companies with blah, 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 blah. The point being, the more precise you are when you're prompting, the far better the output is that you're going to get. So you need to keep that in mind. If you're just asking it, help me get better at lead gen, you might get some results. But if you're giving it hyper-specific stuff with a ton of research inserted into it, it's going to be 1,000,000 times better. And that's how you're going to be better than most of the people who use the basic version of AI. You can see how all of this whole research thing ties in with one another. You're not just researching the people that you're going after, but you're also researching the tactics to make yourself better. Strategies, I should say, because tactics are fickle. So do you have any examples? Examples are super important when you're prompting of what good communication might look like in this case. And then what's your product or service? So again, you would specify DevOps, cloud consulting, whatever it is that you do. And then it will go ahead and you click improve prompt and it will rewrite this again with all of the personalized stuff that you might have missed. Then you would come back over to ChatGPT, any model again, you don't have to use this one. You could just click on a new chat and chuck this awesome prompt in there, and then it would walk you through exactly what you need. So I thought I'd share that. It's valuable, obviously not just for communication, but for literally everything that you do when you're using AI. So keep that in mind. Okay, and then just a quick wrap up of step 1, because there are a few things that I covered. So research like a stalker, get AI to automate it when you have a process nailed. So obviously our purpose is not to keep doing this one by one over and over again. There are tons of solutions out there that automate this for you. Tools are getting better and better every single day. This isn't a video about going over every single one of those tools. I will do another one, and as soon as it's done, it will be in the description below. But for now, just get your basics done. Make sure you understand exactly how to research these people and what good research actually looks like. I will put an example of my tailored outreach approach in the description as well. Then the next thing that you want to do is make sure you build a digital presence that's so good that they want to talk to you before you've even messaged them. And that's all going to tie in with everything that you're trying to sell to these people. Market demand and supply and all of that stuff obviously plays a factor, but your thing should be amazing so that by the time someone does land on your page, they really want to talk to you. Then step 3 is to craft personal outreach messages that actually connect with people, not some generic bullshit that any robot can do. And that's a huge problem now with AI, is people think because they're using AI, it's amazing, and that's just not true at all, because they lack the personalization. And the truth is that there's no excuse not to be great anymore. AI can help you every time your brain says, I don't know. And this isn't just for sales and marketing, whatever the hell it is you're doing. There's literally every time I get to a point in my head where it's like, I don't know how to do this and I'm about to get pissed off, I just remember that now there is a way out. Even if it can't tell me the answer directly, it can help my train of thought get to a new station so that I can understand how to slowly start moving through a problem I don't understand. So let's get on to step 2. To get in the building, people care about how much you know and how you make them feel. And what does that actually mean? Because that's just a bunch of words. And to simplify it, it's really just, are you capable of answering questions technically and personally in a way that makes them like you? It's that straightforward. So again, this is where research is really going to come in handy, because you've done all the stalker level research. You can now use it to your advantage so that you can actually get in the building once you've started speaking to them. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use all the research that I have to predict what questions they'll ask. Now, you've already spoken to this person, again, using the cloud security architect role here, and you're going to go and speak to this person when you're going to go prepared with all this research that you have. There are only a certain amount of questions that they could possibly ask you in the room. Once you understand their company, what tech stack they're using, who the person interviewing you is, and a whole bunch of other variables, you're definitely going to understand a certain set of questions that they might ask. For instance, if they are known to use Kubernetes in their tech stack, then you know to make sure that you understand probably how to troubleshoot it, how pods work, how to connect, several other things, whatever. So again, a finite number of questions in most of these roles. And you can find them. You can find them on Reddit, you can find them on Stack Overflow. You can probably use Perplexity to scour the web and find all of this stuff for you. Or if you're a bit more tech savvy, you can probably use Apify to get a web scraper to actually scrape all of this stuff off of Reddit for you. That would be a way to automate it even more. The point being is that a certain set of questions exists, and based on the factors from all the research that you've done, there's only a certain amount of questions that these people can ask, so you can at least get a ballpark understanding of what they might ask and prepare yourself for that. Because that brings us on to the second bullet point of here, is that there's always going to be stuff that you don't know. But the prep is going to give you the baseline to work on that. So you don't have to sit there saying, I don't know. You can kind of formulate a response, and we'll get to that soon. The point being that prepping makes you look competent. And as long as you get a baseline level of competence, you can work your way up from there once you're in the room. So then the AI power up tactic is to use Perplexity or ChatGPT to simulate interviews or question sets. Again, if you don't have the opportunity to find questions in Reddit or whatever for your specific niche, you can get Perplexity or ChatGPT or any AI model to actually make these interview questions for you. And again, you're going to base it on the research that you found from the stuff that you did in step 1. Because you're always going to have an idea of who's going to be interviewing you and what it's about. Those two things are always going to be there. So what I'm going to do after that is I'm going to then chuck it into Prompt Cowboy, which is the tool we went over before, to make sure that my prompt is super amazing, because I want to make sure that I'm using the best prompt instead of just asking ChatGPT, make me a list of questions. I'm going to give it the full breakdown of exactly what company I'm going to, what kind of person I'm speaking to so that it understands the limited set of questions that I could possibly get asked in the interview. And an example of that would look like, act like a hiring manager for a role at insert company here. They insert all their pain points, the department, the hiring manager, the job description, all of that stuff. What are the 10 likely questions you'd ask in a technical screening? Now, I guarantee you, if I had to copy and paste this into Prompt Cowboy, it would build out the most amazing prompt for me that would actually make it super realistic for the person that I'm going to be meeting. So keep that in mind. It's a really valuable tool. And then the next building block for step 2 is to frame your experience into stories of results. So don't just say, I built X, I like to do taxidermy. You base it on something that they actually care about, which is efficiency, saving money, and solving a business pain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use AI to just craft me simple messages, rewrite this experience as a story that shows ROI, time savings, and any improved workflows in a conversational tone. And you can see again, that's pretty basic, but if you chuck it into Prompt Cowboy, it's a great baseline to work off of to make an amazing outreach strategy so that you can attach your personal experience to the role that you're applying for. And again, you can use the job description or any of the stuff that you found and attach your resume or your LinkedIn profile, whatever, to merge the two together so that it can tell these strangers exactly how you're going to give them value. And the more you practice this stuff, the more personality you can eventually add to it. So don't rely on AI to consistently apply personality for you, because it might not always be able to do that. If you don't know something, never say, I don't know. That's probably one of the worst things that you can say to people, especially if you do it over and over again, because then you just look terrible. So you want to show them how you'd find an answer. That's like 80% of consulting right there, is problem solving on the fly. Because even if you know a whole bunch of stuff, you don't know everything that's inside a specific company. They all have their own problems and their own things that they have to deal with, including some of their own systems. So even though you might know the main program, AWS, you don't know exactly how it's going to link with something that they've made themselves with some of their own in-house development teams. So there's always going to be something that you don't know. And in that case where they have their own in-house stuff, of course you can just say, well, I would need to speak to your in-house team. But the point being is that most of the time they just want to see your thought process behind what you're doing so that they can assess whether you have the ability to use critical thinking. And a lot of the time, the problems always start in the logs. So if you don't know an answer to something and they say, hey, I have this cluster and it's breaking down, how would you go about troubleshooting it? Most of the time, the first answer is always going to be, well, I'd probably start with the logs and then I would check this and see where that takes me. And you build up from there. And as long as you're not saying, I don't know, to a whole bunch of questions and showing them that you're at least trying to think, it really helps. So a tactic that you can use with AI for this is to use ChatGPT. You can get it to think out loud based on your hiring manager questions earlier. So the questions that you get it to ask you, if you don't know an answer, you just ask it right back to obviously give you the answer. But I'm going to use a prompt to say, explain how you troubleshoot a cloud-based performance issue for a large enterprise client. Show your thought process step by step. And the importance of this is that it will help you understand how to break this down logically so that you get better at using critical thinking or troubleshooting things or formulating these plans in your head to get you where you want to go. Because if you're just starting out, you might not necessarily know how to do that. And it's not about memorizing answers. It's literally just about showing people how you respond under pressure. Are you the kind of person that caves, or can you sit there for a moment in silence and not care about the discomfort and then come up with some kind of plan to get you where you want to go? And like I said, it usually always starts with the logs. So just keep that in mind, especially if it's troubleshooting. And then the final building block for this is that you need to wrap it in a pretty bow. So you've got to be able to hold charismatic conversations. Like, you really need to be able to keep people's attention and make sure that you can get them to understand that you have a personality. It's not just about being smooth. You also need to try and inject humor. If you're not that funny, there are other avenues you can take. Maybe you can portray your intelligence in a way that comes across as charismatic. Who knows? And you can practice all of this with your friends or your wife, or if you're like me and you don't have any friends, I just use ChatGPT's voice feature. It's really good, and I use it for pretty much everything when I'm trying to practice something. So for sales calls, if I have a big sales call that I'm worried about, I'll go and jump on to ChatGPT and I'll literally have a discussion, give it the exact role. Again, I'm using these same things. And I'll give it the exact role of the person I'm about to speak to, and we will have a conversation. And a lot of the time what I'll do is I will make it come across as an asshole, just so that if I do ever meet a shitty client, I know how to deal with them. I know how to stay chill and not take it personal and still just respond in ways that attract them to what it is that I'm trying to sell. But then you can take it one step further. You can use a program called Udly. It's going to cover all the things that you need to improve. So if your pacing is too fast or slow, whether you sound confident or not, any filler words that you use if you keep saying or stuff like that. And again, it's great for practicing before interviews or presentations and things like that. Really cool tool. So our final actionable summary for step 2, use ChatGPT to simulate real-world Q&A. Scrape real questions from Reddit, Stack Overflow, basically anywhere on the internet where the actual language is being used. And if you can't find it, you just create it using Prompt Cowboy and one of the language models. You can also have conversations with ChatGPT or Udly so that you understand you're not sounding like a robot when you speak to people. And you can also use ChatGPT or other models to reframe your experience into value stories so that people know exactly what they're getting out of you. And then always show people how you would find answers. Don't just say, I don't know. Then we get on to step 3, which is the most important part. This is the part where you need to deliver. To get paid, people care about how well you deliver and solve their problems. And that's super important because, again, once you've gotten in the door, the most important part isn't that you're actually an expert, but that you can deliver the stuff that you told them that you can deliver. That's what they pay you for. Now, when you get to site, a lot of the time you're going to be juggling 3 different camps of people. You have the money camp, and this is the ROI folks who only give a shit about the money and they don't really care about the tech that gets them there. Then you have the manager camp. These are the box checkers who just want everything done so that they don't have to deal with it anymore and they can go away and do whatever it is that managers do. And then you have the technical camp, which is the nerds, and they just want the best solution that solves the problem because they know what will actually work. For instance, in security, there are so many people who just want to put in these amazing things, but the rest of the camps don't want to do that. And that causes a lot of conflict. Now, it isn't that these things are always going to be exclusive. Sometimes the money camp and the manager camp and the technical camp might be the same person. But a lot of the time over my 12 years of consulting, they've mostly been different people, or at most a manager might have a little bit of technical capability and vice versa. But for the most part, you'll be dealing with different teams, and this is just a high-level overview of who the people are that you're going to be speaking to. So your job is to show them that you understand all 3 of their goals and deliver it in a way that each of them actually understand. So you need to focus, like the money camp cares about the money, the manager camp cares about getting this done so that we can move forward. They don't want project delays and shit like that. And the technical camp, they need to be satisfied both that you know what you're doing, but also that the solution that you're presenting to them makes logical sense for their technical capability. So my framework for delivery is super simple. Fast. Work as efficiently as possible. Always leave the ball in their court so you know that you're not the bottleneck. And this is super important because a lot of people sit there thinking that extending this engagement is going to keep them billable for longer, which is really stupid. And I speak about that in another video. But getting stuff done fast makes you look really good because it shows that you're able to work efficiently, which not only makes the money camp happy and the manager camp happy, but the technical people also get their stuff done quickly, which means they have less problems to deal with once the solution is implemented. So working fast definitely makes you look good. Accurate. Validate your work against known good solutions, not just your own intelligence. This is a problem a lot of smart people have, is they think that they either need to invent it themselves or because they went and studied something for 4 years, that their solution is better than everyone else's and they should implement it rather than something that already exists. And this is something that's really stupid because most of the world's problems have already been solved in the front that we're talking about here, specifically technology. To the point where you can go online and find a solution. This was even true 10 years ago because I was doing it and people were doing it 10 years before me. So if we look at work on a timeline of like 20 years, most of the things have been done. And even though things have changed and been improved and new things have come out, the backbone of the solutions are still fairly similar. So to go and implement your entirely own brand new solution makes no sense to the money camp because you're wasting their money. It makes no sense to the manager camp because you're delaying something that could be done faster. And the technical camp, to some degree, some people might agree with you, but equally, if a solution exists and their technical camp knows about it and you don't do it, and they say that this person's wasting our time by making something brand new when it already exists, you're not going to look as good as you think you are. So for me, I'm always going to first look for solutions that already exist to make sure that all 3 of those people are happy. And you find those on like forums, your friends, facts, or even AI. Those are probably going to be the things that I use first. I'm going to use Perplexity to scour the web and find any solutions that already exist. Again, there's so many new features in Perplexity that will help you with this for another video. But that's where I'm going to start. And then I'm not just going to copy and paste the solution. In no way am I suggesting that's what you do. You need to apply your own critical thinking here to say, does the solution meet the needs of the organization? And then how can I tailor this specific thing to meet their needs if everything doesn't exist? And obviously, if it's something with code and things like that, you need to review it to make sure that it's not going to completely destroy their environment. Point being is that for your accuracy, Stuff already exists. You just need to apply critical thinking to it. And then point 3 is cost effective. So you need to be budget conscious, but don't go so cheap that whatever it is that you do actually creates more problems. You need to show them that you understand the trade-offs between saving money and actually implementing something that doesn't cause more problems. And then explain that to them in a way that understands. And if you use these 3 things, which is a super simple framework, people are really going to understand that you are the best at what you do because you're not screwing any of the camps over and the things that are important to them, because they all have their individual needs and you need to cater for them. So the speed to value needs to be obvious here. Your work should have one clear message. This is saving you time, money, and effort right now. Everyone needs to understand that all 3 of those camps. So how do you do this practically? The first thing you're going to do is keep it simple and just show them KPIs. So this fix that I did reduced downtime by 40%, and this change will cut your cloud bill by 2K. Those are 2 very common things that large companies have. They turn on all their shit in an environment and think that because they've got this all enabled, they have this robust infrastructure in AWS when actually they're just burning like 40K a month. Literally had that where I sent one of my consultants and the company was literally burning 40K a month when their developers couldn't answer the question why they had this thing turned on. So the next step that you want to do is obviously not just tell them that you did this. You want to visualize it to them. People like seeing visuals. In fact, they love it, according to my presentation over here, because they like seeing results in action. So think about it this way. The last time someone told you something, you can kind of get into their story and that's really cool. But if someone shows you something like a video of this thing, your whole mind is completely changed because you're engrossed into this experience. So when you visualize this stuff, if you show them a working example in a workshop about this change that you made that saves them all of this money, and you show them graphs and all of this stuff, it looks way better, which increases your perceived value. Wow, this guy did all of this stuff. And that's how you wrap it in a pretty bow. So then finally we get onto communication being the key, because you've done all of this amazing stuff, you've visualized it, and now you're ready to present it to the 3 different camps. And it's super important because if you don't nail the landing properly, all of it can fall flat if you don't know how to articulate this stuff to the people that you're trying to show value to. So if you're asking yourself, how the hell do I communicate with 3 different mindsets all at once? The point of view I take is pretty simple, because I know that all the techies will understand both languages. Obviously they speak plain English and they also understand the technical stuff. I'm going to make sure that all of my words and everything that I do is tailored towards people who don't. So I'm going to make sure that it's non-technical, because the majority of the time, the non-technical audience are the ones who sign all the papers and get things done. And because the techies understand both languages, it's the better option to take. So if you're not sure how to do that, or you're just a very technical person, which does happen, I've got super smart friends. They're not really good with people unless it's a social situation, but they just love to talk about their tech and how amazing it is and all of its functionality and stuff like that. And that falls flat with people who sign paychecks and do things like that. They really don't give a shit. So the simplest thing to do, rather than waste your own time, is just to take your technical report, chuck it into ChatGPT or Claude, and get it to turn your complex ideas into something human-friendly. And it can include things to have like metaphors and analogies so that they understand what it is you're talking about. And an easy prompt idea is to rewrite this technical paragraph to be understood by a manager who knows nothing about what it is that we're talking about. Pretty straightforward. Again, you could use Prompt Cowboy for this, but you probably don't need to, because you're literally just using it as a translator. So then there's a comms framework that I use for real life discussions, because if you're talking to a room of people presenting at a workshop, you're not going to have the opportunity to do this on the fly with ChatGPT. So this comms framework is built around 3 C's, and the first one is context. So who's in the room? You've got the techies. You always want to go deep on the technical details. If it's the managers, you want high-level outcomes and dependencies. And if it's the money people, you want return on investment, cost savings, and risk mitigation. Now, if they're all in the room, I'm going to tailor it to a point of view that the managers and the money people understand, because that's where most of the conversation is held with the people who are going to keep you billable. And again, the techies are going to understand what you're saying, regardless of whether you're using their language or if you're using language that's more suited towards a manager or a money person. So you need to understand the workshop you're about to go to, who is going to be in the room. And then the next thing I'm going to do is use clarity when I speak. So I use analogies, metaphors, or stories that resonate with the world that they're in. So if it's someone really simple, you could say, think of this cloud migration like a moving truck. We're only taking what's needed to save costs and speed things up. That's pretty straightforward, super basic, and anyone in the room will understand exactly what you're talking about. So you need to adjust your language based on their level. Managers, focus it on less operational overhead. Technical, meet their technical requirements, and the money camp. How did your solution bring financial change or results? And then the third part is don't waffle. Less is more. Tell them exactly what they need to know and no filler other than the injection of your own personality. The outcome of this is that all parties see some form of value that you've represented to them, and they also think that you're their personal messiah. So it's really good to make sure that you can do this. The final actionable summary for step 3. Be as efficient and accurate as possible without breaking their bank. Show results visually wherever you can. Use AI to simplify anything that's complex so that different audiences can understand it, and deliver it to them with as little background noise as possible. Then to wrap things up, so what matters? You need to solve the problems fast, show the value in plain language, and make sure everyone feels like they can trust you. Consulting is going to be a walk in the park if you can just stick to these simple practices. Now you might be asking yourself why this matters, and it's so that you can be seen as an expert in a world that is so saturated with mediocrity that to stand out is really not hard anymore. You don't need the permission to get started. You just need a plan, some audacity, and the authenticity to make sure that your personality gets added to the approach that you're taking. And that's it, guys. Everything we discussed will be in the description below, including a PDF with all of these prompts and tools that I speak about. If you have any specific requests, leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, you can check out my community where I'm helping people build 6-figure consulting careers with the skills that they already have. I'll see you guys in the next one.